Today we're talking about everyday carry knives here on Everyday Tactical Vids. This is Tim and we're looking at the SOG Flash II. Let me give you some of the details. This knife, as far as the price, is going to run you between $45 up to probably $60 or $65. And there are a couple different versions of the Flash. There's the Flash 1, there's the Flash 2. You can get it with a black coated blade, you can get it with a satin finish, you can get it with serrations, without serrations. So if you like the general style of this blade, there are a few different options out there, including a tiger stripe version of this and also one with a yellow handle. Your overall length for this knife is 8 inches, your blade length is 3.5, your handle length is 4.5. It is made of Aus 8 steel. It's got a Rockwell hardness of 57 to 58. Drop point with a hollow grind, and you can see that this is the partially serrated version. Here's a look at the handle. It is a fiberglass reinforced nylon handle. It does have a safety, so when the blade is actually inside the handle, you can put the safety on so it won't accidentally deploy. It does come with a pocket clip, and the pocket clip can be left or right-handed, and it is always tip up. To deploy the knife, it is spring assisted. We'll show you what that looks like in a second, and there are thumb studs that are used to actually deploy the knife. You can see some of the jimping there on the lower portion in those finger grooves, and then I'll show you some of the jimping on top as well. Let me talk about the handle a little bit more. You can see it is textured on both sides. You also do have that jimping on the underside here. I wouldn't call this on the top jimping, but it is textured for a little bit more grip and control. There in the middle, and then there at the end as well. One thing that is a little bit strange about this knife is that because of this aggressive jimping in these two spots, and then here, if you're going to really get a hold of it in a very snug way, you're going to have to kind of rest it like 1, 2, and then your thumb there. So it seems like it's built to be used like this. The natural way my hand falls is more like this, and then my thumb rests up here a little bit. That's just kind of how when I pick up a knife, that's where my hand falls. But when you do that, you can get good positive control with this first finger, but the second finger floats a little bit more just because of how deep that groove is. It's not make or break, but just something to know. When I pick up the knife, if I'm going to actually really get good solid control using the jimping underneath here, my hand will definitely fall much more like this. And then if I grab it the way I would naturally grab it, I would choke up a little bit and hold it more like this. Here's what the knife looks like all closed up and locked up. This is your safety mechanism over here. You can't see any red when this is pressed down, so therefore you can't deploy the knife at all. When you do slide this up, you can now see red. Red is dead. And now you press on the thumb stud and it will deploy quite quickly. SOG says they have the fastest deployment for knives when it comes to assisted opening knives. You can have a discussion about that in the comments. I'll definitely tell you that it does open quickly though, quite efficiently. When it is open, some knives for their safety, you can actually lock this down to keep the knife from being able to fold back in. That is not the case with this. No matter how much you press this down, it doesn't actually serve any function other than when the blade is actually inside the handle. To close the blade, you're going to slide this locking mechanism out of the way. And I will tell you, I'll show you right here, when I was starting to mess around with this knife when I first took it out of the package, you can slide it back a little bit and it doesn't close, a little bit more, it doesn't close. You can see it's almost 3/4 of the way back. This still won't close. When you slide it all the way back, now the blade can actually fold in. So one more time, here's your deployment, and then to fold it up. Once it's folded, lock that down, and you're good to go. Since I just unboxed this knife, I'm going to use it as an EDC blade for a couple weeks, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. One thing I will say is that I'm not a huge fan of the fact that this locking mechanism moves so freely when the knife is either deployed, or even when you close the blade up and lock this, you can still move this thing back and forth. I wish they put some sort of spring mechanism in there so that it would lock in place and not be able to be moved. I don't think it's going to affect the safety or the actual use of the blade at all. I don't like a lot of moving parts, floating around. It seems like after a while this could just start shifting around more than I want it to. But one thing I do very much like is the speed of the deployment. That really opens quickly, and I just think it's a very handsome blade. It's a good looking knife. So let me use this for a couple weeks and then I'll come back and report into you. Okay, back in the studio now after several weeks of using the SOG Flash II as my EDC knife. Let me offer you some thoughts. First, I like the weight compared to the overall size of the knife. I'll show you two other common EDC knives for me and then just kind of common in general. And out of these three knives, this one is the largest but still the lightest weight, and that's mostly due to the construction of the handle. Second is I like the pocket clip. Look how that is set up. So you don't see any of the end of the handle there. You just see the pocket clip when it's in your pocket. So that is a major plus. Third thing is that it is quite smooth and actually quite fun to deploy. And I'll show you that again. So I'll fold this blade in, and it does come out quite quickly from the handle as it is deployed. The one main downside I would say at this point for me is that the way that the jimping is done and just the finger grooves. It's not terrible by any means, but as I said before, I feel like it's asking me to hold it like this as opposed to the way I would normally want to hold it, kind of up with my thumb up on the spine of the blade. It's not a huge issue, but that is the one thing that's a little that I would hope they would, fix in maybe the Flash 3 or sometime down the road if they're making, other versions of this knife. I would say the other thing for me is that I wish they made it exactly like this, but also with just plain edge, so no serrations. I don't mind the serrations for this, and I do find that the knife overall does cut well, but I'm generally a person who would prefer just a plain edge, so that would be another change I would make in the future. But overall, still a very nice EDC knife. Here you can see the Ontario Rat 2 up top, and then the Spyderco Tenacious, and then the SOG Flash 2 on the bottom. Again, just as I said before, the SOG Flash 2 is actually the lightest of all three of these knives, even though it is the largest. It is comparable, generally speaking, in price to the Tenacious, and a little bit more expensive than the Rat 2, but still in the general price range. And I think if you like the look of the knife, which I do very much like the look of the knife, you want something a little bit larger than the Rat 2 and something that does, but doesn't have a lot of extra weight, this could be a very good option for you. So check it out. It's available certainly online and a lot of local retailers as well, the SOG Flash 2. As always, thanks for checking out our videos here today on Everyday Tactical Vids. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and check us out on Tumblr. More videos coming soon. Take care.